Why use a Fresnel lens? And not just a normal reflector or a normal reflector with a grid, or even a magnum reflector with a grid. How will Fresnel lenses change your photography? And why is this staple in the filmmaking industry underutilized by photographers? This video answers these questions, plus I'm gonna give you 3 lighting setups, so you're gonna wanna stick around for this one. First, some quick comparisons. Here's a bare bulb flash, which I love for its clean shadows. And here's a Fresnel lens flooded out to 45 degrees, which I also love for its clean shadows. But it gives us more shadow contrast because the light isn't bouncing all over the room, like the bare bulb. Now let's compare it to a zoom reflector. The zoom reflector increases the contrast from the bare bulb, but the shadows are not as clean. A 20-degree grid gets us the contrast back, but the Fresnel gives us the same contrast with a theoretical 45 versus 20-degree beam angle. So we don't have the same fall off. Plus, we don't get the same super smooth shadow transitions that we do with the Fresnel. Why does this matter? Leveling up your lighting and getting your images to look 1% better is about having control. Having control over your shadows, the beam angle, and the spill are all things that we will cover in this video, helping you level up your lighting. And yes, I'm going to give you multiple lighting recipes using just 2 of these Fresnels. But let's quickly look at the results when using a magnum reflector. The shadows are even more haloed, and when you add a grid to the magnum to gain more contrast, the light falls off even more rapidly due to a tighter beam angle, and the shadows are still haloed. It's a larger light source, so we're not getting the same tight shadow edge fall off. And a dirty little secret about most hard reflectors, the shadows aren't as clean as bare bulb or using a Fresnel lens when you want hard light. The shadows thrown by a light source are definitely something seasoned cinematographers are very picky about, and photographers should be as well. And hopefully, this video makes you a little bit more discerning. So now let's transform this test setup into a real-world set that could be modified to fit in a living room with low ceilings. I'm going to use a gravity backdrop behind our model and on the floor to quickly transition the space. I was using the V-flat to demonstrate a shadow thrown from a further distance in our comparison, but now I want the shadow to be a graphic element in the photo. I'm going to tilt the V-flat using apple boxes to give the shadow a slant. And I'm going to use a duckbill clamp on an arm to keep it from accidentally falling on our model if accidentally bumped. Then I'm going to put another head with a Fresnel on a C-stand with a drop pin to give the model an edge light while using the barn doors to keep light from spilling onto the background. I added a flag for some of the images to get a hard cut when flagging the model's face at times, but sometimes I don't use it. Another great reason to use a Fresnel is most come with an option for barn doors. In this setup, the barn doors really help keep the light off the background. Now let's advance this setup a bit. Using an open frame, I attach a gel, and since the rays of light from a Fresnel are so parallel, you get nice cuts when using flags and gels to add effects like this subtle transition from warm to cool with this kind of cool green gel. Now let's use the Fresnel as a fill light. Oftentimes people opt for a soft fill, but let's go for a hard fill light. First, I'm going to use a Fresnel as my main light with a 1/4 CTS warming gel on it. Then I'm going to fill in the shadows with a Fresnel from above. See the difference with and without? This is one of my favorite lighting setups, and again, could easily be achieved in a relatively small space. The barn doors are a huge help in keeping my main light from spilling onto the background. And this is key for when you're working in home studios. I also like my fill light the way that it falls off from the model's head going down to her torso. It keeps the attention on her face, and using a harder light as a fill, you get these silvery reflections in the model's skin that I personally love. I hope you can see the beauty in the Fresnel lens. They collimate light, meaning they get the light rays to travel parallel to each other versus a grid, which simply narrows the spread of a light. It's the design used in lighthouses invented by Augustin Jean Fresnel to reduce the size and weight of the glass needed to focus the light. You don't need a long history, but I did want to give you some context. Now for my next lighting setup. Let's do a fashion shoot with hard light, because I really love using hard light. Again, this is one of my favorite lighting setups. I normally do it with a Profoto telezoom, but now I'm using the Nanlite Fresnel. And these are some of my favorite images. And I love how clean the shadows are and the fall off on the background. You can quickly modify this setup by lowering the light. And now the shadow falls behind our model, and I get this beautiful fall off where her head is properly exposed, but her hands fade to black. To put it simply, I love the way they collimate light and give me clean shadows that feel less studio than hard reflectors at times. I feel like they give a huge amount of control over spill and light fall off. Now for some things to consider. I'm using a Profoto D2 with a dome on it. The size of the light source and its position in the Fresnel will have different effects no matter what Fresnel you use. So if using this with a Godox or Elinchrom, which have different head positions, the results may differ a little bit. Also, you can never fully judge your fall off with the modeling light for this same reason. It is smaller than the flash tube. The Nanlite gives you the option to zoom it in and out simply by twisting it. So you should test the results you get with different beam angles before doing a real shoot, if you're going to adapt it the way I have using a third-party adapter. And I do truly believe that this Nanlite Fresnel is one of the best for the price. Most Fresnel lenses designed for photo heads are in the 4-figure range, and this one is not even close to that. And I've had zero issues with the halogen modeling lights. One thing to note is there are many different Fresnel lenses from many different manufacturers you can try. But a huge advantage to using normal reflectors is that overall you will get more punch. If I was lighting something outside with a lot of ambient light and shadows weren't a huge concern, I would definitely look at either using the Magnum reflector or even the normal zoom reflector to possibly get a little bit more punch. And all I gotta say is when it comes to Fresnel lenses for photography, get you one. My name is Ab, and as you know, they're levels.